Attention all F1 fans, Mercedes are failing in their attempts to catch up to Red Bull at the moment. Toto Wolff's team are still a long way off the pace, but could Merc have a sneaky tactic up their sleeve to help them catch up? But what might this tactic be? Replace their fuel with a can of Red Bull? Let's take a look at the unsporting trick which Mercedes could use to their advantage. It may seem like an incredibly long time ago now, but it was only 2 years ago that we saw one of the best title fights in Formula 1 history. Millions of fans were brought to the sport by the intense battle between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton that was filled with incidents on and off the track. One of the things which made the title race so exciting to watch was that both drivers had pretty much equal machinery. The Mercedes and Red Bull cars were incredibly close pace-wise, and this meant that it was really down to the skill of the driver to win races, as well as a bit of meddling from a certain former race director, but we won't go into that again. F1 fans like myself hoped that the two teams would continue to produce similar machinery, which would lead to more exciting title races in 2022 and beyond. Little did we know that Mercedes would go nowhere near Red Bull in the following years. The gap between Mercedes and Red Bull has been massive this season. While in 2022 there were more races where Mercedes finished lower down in the order, this season we've seen the biggest gap in pure pace. In the very first race of the season, Max was 6/10 faster than both Mercedes in qualifying. The Dutchman finished the race more than 50 seconds ahead of his former title rival Lewis Hamilton by the end of that Bahrain Grand Prix. 50 seconds is a lifetime in Formula 1, so a very disappointing result for Mercedes. The gap has closed slightly in the following races, with the gap between Max and the Mercs being down to 24 seconds at the end of the Spanish Grand Prix. Despite a late safety car, Lewis Hamilton was still behind Max by 15 seconds at the checkered flag in Canada. Mercedes do now have 4 podiums this season, but they've never really looked close to the Red Bulls. So could they be looking for an unsporting trick to help close the gap? If you're a new Formula 1 fan, you might not have heard of former F1 world champion Damon Hill before. A British sporting legend, Hill has had quite a crazy idea to help Mercedes in their pursuit of Red Bull. Essentially, Hill believes that Mercedes should throw in the towel on the 2023 season. The point that Hill makes is that Mercedes could stop trying really this season and instead focus all of their resources on next year. Hill explained his reasoning saying, "Ironically, the better Mercedes do in 2023, the less scope they've got for the following year." You kind of wonder whether Mercedes ought to be thinking about doing really badly between now and the end of the year. Hill added, "I think you've got the budget, and you can spend it, but you can't because you did so well the previous season. Then it kind of makes you wonder whether you ought to do really badly. If you're not going to win this year, you want to win next year." The idea does sound pretty ridiculous, but there is some solid reasoning beside it. There would really be 2 key benefits if Mercedes want to focus purely on next year. The first would be that Mercedes would have a huge amount of money. They would not have to spend any more of their budget on the 2023 season, and instead could put more of the budget into focusing on the 2024 season. The other benefit is to do with the way that wind tunnel time works in Formula 1. Essentially, the worse you do in the Constructors' Championship, the more wind tunnel time you get in the following season. So for the 2023 season, Red Bull get the least amount of wind tunnel time because they finished first in the 2022 season. If Mercedes decided against bringing upgrades, they could finish lower in the Constructors' Championship and would get more wind tunnel time in 2024. So there would be upsides to Mercedes tanking for the rest of the season. While Red Bull's dominance will likely mean that Mercedes push more of their resources into development for 2024, it seems incredibly unlikely that Mercedes will give up on the title race already this season. For one thing, it really is not over until it's over. The gap is not completely out of the reach of Mercedes, and it would be stupid for them to give Red Bull the title barely a third of the way into the season. The other reason the team won't give up is because there are downsides to finishing lower in the constructors' table. Prize money is split between teams, so that the team that finished in first gets the most money, and the team that finished in last gets the least amount of money. So Mercedes would receive less prize money if they finished lower down in the constructors' standings. While it does seem unlikely that Mercedes would give up on 2023, there does appear to be some mixed messages coming out of the team at the moment. The management team at Mercedes still seem to be pretty set on still putting up a fight against Red Bull for the rest of the 2023 season. They seem to be enjoying being the hunter this season, as explained by the team's technical director James Allison. Allison said, "We're all going to feel a bit miffed about not being competitive, even though that sort of unhappiness we see every time they win is offset hugely by the fact that it is thrilling in its own way to be fighting back, to be improving our car week on week." Allison praised Red Bull's work this season, saying, "They don't have a God-given right to be in the lead. They're there by merit, having worked really well. If we can do as good or better job, we'll be there, and that is actually a lot of fun." So while it seems like the team is focused on 2023, not everyone wants Mercedes to continue to just look at this season. Lewis Hamilton has really been the main driving force in Mercedes getting on the podium. After a second place in Spain, he followed that up with a third place in Canada a week later. But it was his comments after the race which intrigued a lot of Formula 1 fans about Mercedes' goals for the rest of the year. Following the Canadian Grand Prix, Hamilton said, "It's been a great weekend. Very difficult with the conditions, but loving being in the car now with the car in a better window and a bit more on the right track. For us to be up there, having battles with Fernando in the Aston and being on the second row, it's been great. To be on the podium 2 races in a row is really fantastic for us." While the 7-time world champion was clearly pleased with the team's progress, Lewis still recognised that the gap to Red Bull is still massive. Hamilton added, "We were also running 4th in Monaco, so we're definitely getting closer. And it's going to be a battle of development, I guess, over the rest of the season." Lewis commented on what he believes Red Bull are doing at the moment, and how perhaps Mercedes needs a change of direction. Hamilton added, "I reckon Max's team are already working on next year's car, so we need to take our eye a little bit off the ball and focus on next year also. But yeah, happy to be up there." At the moment, it does not seem like the team's plans are matching up with Hamilton's wishes. Team boss Toto Wolff has already spoken about how Mercedes plan on bringing 2 more major upgrades to their current car. What Lewis will still probably like to hear is that the first major upgrade is being brought to Silverstone for the British Grand Prix, with a second upgrade being brought in just before the summer break. This certainly does not seem like Mercedes giving up on the 2023 season and instead focusing on 2024. There still appears to be a lot of hope that Mercedes could challenge Red Bull later in the year. Mercedes don't really need massive changes to at least get a little bit closer to Red Bull. There does need to be some luck involved, with Red Bull hopefully falling off slightly to aid Mercedes' advance. This does mean that it seems unlikely Mercedes will completely give up on the title race already. A lot can change in a single season of Formula 1. From a fan's perspective, Formula 1 is dying for somebody to challenge Red Bull this season. I don't know about you, but I'm not sure how many more races I can sit through seeing that Dutchman in his Red Bull glide off into the distance without having to put up a fight at all. While Mercedes should certainly be focusing on 2024, they cannot completely give up on the 2023 season. Sure, Mercedes would probably love to have the extra wind tunnel time that comes with finishing lower down in the constructors' standings, but they probably don't want to miss out on the money that comes with finishing second. It's easy to forget, but Mercedes were not the second best team last season, with Ferrari ending up just behind Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship. Merc will want to improve this season, and now have 2 different teams who are aiming for second in the Constructors' battle. But what do you think? Should Mercedes throw in the towel on this season and put all of their focus on 2024? Or should they keep putting their resources into 2023 and see if they can push Red Bull? Why not put your thoughts in the comments down below? While you're down there, hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.